I don't understand what his problem is. Yes, I sell my private content online, but we need to make money. Yes, I kept it secret because I knew he might not react as I expected. But it's my body, my choice, and my right to do whatever I want with it. If he made enough money to support us both, maybe I wouldn't have had to find other ways to pay the bills. Instead of being grateful that I'm contributing to our household, he acts like I betrayed him. Men are so controlling. Before I walk you through the full story, I just have a small favor to ask. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and let me know in the comments. What city are you watching from? It's always amazing to see how far this audience is reaching. Now, let's get back to the story. Everything was going perfectly until last Friday night. Ryan and I were at a house party at his friend Mike's place. It was a typical gathering. Teachers and their partners, some college friends, everyone just hanging out and drinking beer. I was having a good time, talking to people I'd met before and getting to know some new faces. About an hour into the party, I noticed Ryan talking to Mike and two other guys near the kitchen. They were looking at someone's phone and seemed to be having an intense conversation. I thought they were probably just looking at sports highlights or something. But then Mike looked up and made eye contact with me across the room. The expression on his face was weird, like he was seeing me for the first time. The other guys looked at me too, and I could tell something was wrong. Ryan walked over to me with a face I'd never seen before. He looked pale and angry and confused all at the same time. "We need to go," he said quietly. "Right now." I asked him what was wrong, but he just shook his head and started walking toward the door. I followed him, confused and starting to panic about what could have happened. We drove home in complete silence. Ryan's hands were gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles were white, and he wouldn't look at me or answer any of my questions about what was going on. When we got to our apartment, Ryan went straight to our bedroom and came back with his laptop. He set it on the kitchen table and opened it without saying a word. "What is this?" he asked, turning the screen toward me. My heart stopped. On the screen was my OnlyFans profile, complete with my photos and subscription information. Someone had screenshotted everything and apparently shown it to the guys at the party. I felt like I was going to throw up. This was not how I'd wanted Ryan to find out about my account. I'd planned to tell him myself when I was ready, in a way that would help him understand my reasoning. "Ryan, I can explain," I started, but he held up his hand to stop me. "Mike's friend showed me this," he said, his voice eerily calm. "He said he recognized you from the photos. He said you're selling this online." I could see hurt and confusion and anger all fighting for control of his expression. I'd never seen Ryan look at me this way before, like I was a stranger. "Yes, I have an OnlyFans account," I said, trying to sound confident and matter-of-fact. "But it's not what you think. It's just a business. I'm making money to help us with our expenses." Ryan stared at me for a long moment, and I could see him trying to process what I'd just confirmed. "How long?" he asked. 3 months, I admitted. "Since March." 3 months, he repeated slowly. "You've been doing this for 3 months and never told me." I tried to explain that I'd been planning to tell him, that I'd just been waiting for the right time. But as the words came out of my mouth, I realized how weak they sounded. "You've been lying to me for 3 months, Ryan said. "Every day you've been lying to me about what you do, about how you're making money, about who you are." "I wasn't lying," I protested. "I just wasn't ready to discuss it yet. This is my body and my choice. I have the right to make my own decisions about what I do with it." Ryan laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Your choice? Your right? What about my right to know that my girlfriend is selling naked pictures to strangers on the internet?" His words stung because they made my business sound cheap and degrading, which it wasn't. I was providing a service that people wanted to pay for. I was being entrepreneurial and taking control of my financial situation. "It's not like that," I said. "It's not just naked pictures, it's content creation. It's a legitimate business model that thousands of women use to make money." "Madison," Ryan said, and his voice was getting louder now. You're selling access to your body to random men online. Men are paying money to see you naked, to get personalized content from you. How is that not exactly what I said it was? I felt my own anger rising. Ryan was being so narrow-minded about this, so traditional and judgmental. He wasn't even trying to understand the business side of what I was doing. You know what? I said, crossing my arms. Maybe if you made enough money to actually support us, I wouldn't have had to find other ways to pay the bills. I'm tired of struggling financially because your job doesn't pay enough to live on. The moment the words left my mouth, I could see that I'd crossed a line. Ryan's face went completely white, and he took a step back from me like I'd physically hit him. So, this is my fault? He asked quietly. This is about my salary? It's about reality, I said, doubling down even though I could see I was hurting him. It's about the fact that we can barely afford our apartment on what you make. It's about me taking initiative to improve our financial situation instead of just accepting that we'll always be broke. Ryan was quiet for a long time, just looking at me like he was trying to figure out who I really was. You think I don't know that my salary isn't enough, he finally said. You think I don't lie awake at night worrying about money, trying to figure out how to give you the life you deserve. I started to interrupt, but he kept talking. I pick up every extra shift I can get. I tutor kids on weekends. I spend my summers teaching summer school instead of taking a break like other teachers. I do everything I can to make more money, but I also chose a career that's about more than just a paycheck. And that's admirable, I said, but admirable doesn't pay the rent. Ryan shook his head slowly. The Madison I fell in love with understood that. She said she respected my passion for teaching, that she didn't care about money as long as we were happy together. Well, maybe the Madison you fell in love with was naive about how expensive life actually is, I shot back. Or maybe, Ryan said, the Madison I fell in love with doesn't exist anymore. We stood there in silence for a few minutes, both of us breathing hard and trying to process what had just happened. I could see tears in Ryan's eyes, which made me feel terrible, but I also felt angry that he was making me feel guilty for being practical about our finances. Look, I said, trying to soften my tone, I know this is a shock, but if you just think about it logically, you'll see that this makes sense. I'm making good money, I'm being safe about it, and I'm helping our household financially. Isn't that what matters? Ryan wiped his eyes and looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. Madison, he said, if you needed money, why didn't you talk to me about it? We could have figured something else out. I could have gotten a second job. We could have moved somewhere cheaper. We could have asked our families for help. Because I don't want to have to depend on anyone else, I said. I don't want to have to ask for help or make sacrifices when I can solve the problem myself. By selling yourself online. By using my assets to create income, I corrected. It's called being entrepreneurial. Ryan was quiet again, and I could see him struggling with something. How much money are you making? He asked finally. About $2,000 a month, I said, and I couldn't help feeling a little proud of that number. Ryan's eyes widened. $2,000? Madison, that's more than I make teaching. I know, I said. That's why this makes sense. That's why you should be supporting this instead of judging me for it. But instead of looking impressed or supportive, Ryan just looked sad. Do you hear yourself right now? He asked. You're making more money than me by selling naked pictures to strangers, and you think that's something to be proud of? I think it's something to be practical about, I said. I think it's better than being broke and stressed about money all the time. Ryan picked up his laptop and closed it slowly. I need some time to think, he said. I'm going to stay at Mike's tonight. Ryan, come on, I said. Don't be dramatic about this. We can work through this if you just open your mind a little bit. But he was already walking toward the bedroom to pack a bag. 3 months, Madison, he said without turning around. You kept this secret for 3 months. You lied to me every single day for 3 months. And when I found out, your first response was to blame me for not making enough money. I didn't lie, I called after him. I just didn't tell you everything. That's the same thing, he said from the bedroom. 20 minutes later, Ryan left with a duffel bag and his work clothes for Monday. He kissed me on the forehead before he walked out the door, which somehow made everything worse. I love you, he said, but I don't know if I can be with someone who thinks so little of me that she'd rather sell herself online than ask me for help. Then he was gone, and I was alone in our apartment with my laptop and my OnlyFans account and all the money I'd made. That suddenly didn't feel worth it anymore. That was 2 weeks ago, and Ryan still hasn't come home. For the first few days, I convinced myself he was just being dramatic and would come to his senses once he had time to think rationally about the situation. I sent him texts explaining my reasoning, articles about the legitimacy of online content creation, and screenshots of my earnings to show him how successful I'd been. He responded to exactly one of my messages, and all he said was, "I need more time." After a week of silence, I started to panic. I called him repeatedly, but he only answered once, and the conversation was brief and painful. "Madison," he said when he picked up, "I can't do this right now. I'm trying to figure out if we can work through this, but I need space to think." "What's there to think about?" I asked. "I made a business decision to improve our financial situation. Yes, I should have told you sooner, but that doesn't change the fact that I was trying to help us." "You don't get it," Ryan said, and he sounded exhausted. "This isn't about the money. This is about trust. This is about the fact that you kept a huge secret from me for months and then blamed me for your choice when I found out." "I didn't blame you," I said. "I just pointed out the reality of our financial situation." "Madison," Ryan said quietly, "you told me that if I made more money, you wouldn't have had to sell naked pictures to strangers. How is that not blaming me?" I wanted to argue with him, but something in his voice stopped me. He sounded broken, like I'd damaged something fundamental about how he saw me and our relationship. "Are you breaking up with me?" I asked, afraid to hear the answer. "I don't know," he said. "I honestly don't know." Then he hung up, and I haven't heard from him since. I've spent the last week trying to function normally, but everything feels wrong without Ryan. Our apartment feels too big and too quiet. I keep expecting him to walk through the door after work, to ask about my day, to suggest we cook dinner together. Instead, I eat takeout alone while scrolling through my OnlyFans messages and trying to pretend I don't miss him desperately. The worst part is that I can't talk to anyone about what's happening. My friends from work don't know about my OnlyFans account, and Jessica, who got me into this in the first place, thinks Ryan is being possessive and controlling. "Girl, you're making bank," she said when I told her about our fight. "Any man who can't handle you being financially independent isn't worth your time." But Jessica doesn't understand the whole situation. She doesn't know Ryan like I do. She doesn't know how kind and patient and supportive he's always been, how he's never tried to control me or limit my choices before this. She also doesn't know that deep down, I'm starting to realize I might have made a terrible mistake. It's not just that I miss Ryan, though I do miss him more than I've ever missed anyone. It's that I'm starting to understand his perspective in a way I couldn't when I was defensive and angry. I kept a huge secret from him for 3 months. I made a major life decision that affected both of us without including him in the conversation. And when he found out in the worst possible way, my first instinct was to justify my choice by attacking his income. Looking back at that night, I can see how cruel my words must have sounded. Ryan has always been insecure about his salary, worried that he can't provide for me the way he thinks he should. And instead of reassuring him that money didn't matter to me, I basically confirmed his worst fears. I told the man I loved that he wasn't enough, that his inability to make more money had forced me to sell my body to strangers online. Even if that wasn't exactly what I meant, that's definitely what he heard. The more I think about it, the more I realize that Ryan never asked me to depend on him financially. He never suggested that he should be the only one working or making money. He just wanted to be part of the conversation when I was making decisions that affected our relationship. If I'd told him I was struggling with money, he would have helped me brainstorm solutions. If I'd told him I was considering OnlyFans, he might have had concerns, but we could have talked through them together. If I'd been honest from the beginning, maybe we could have figured out a way to make it work. Instead, I made a unilateral decision and then spent 3 months lying about it, all while telling myself I was protecting him from information he couldn't handle. But Ryan has never been fragile or controlling. He's always respected my autonomy and supported my choices, even when he didn't fully understand them. I was the one who decided he couldn't handle the truth, and I was wrong. Yesterday, I did something I've been avoiding for 2 weeks. I looked at my OnlyFans account with fresh eyes, trying to see it the way Ryan might see it. What I saw made me feel sick. Yes, I'm making good money. Yes, I'm being entrepreneurial and taking control of my financial situation. But I'm also selling intimate parts of myself to men who don't care about me as a person, who see me as a fantasy rather than a human being. I'm responding to messages from subscribers who tell me what they want to do to me, who ask for custom content, who think they have some kind of relationship with me because they pay $15 a month. I'm spending hours every day creating content designed to sexually satisfy strangers, all while my actual boyfriend feels betrayed and abandoned. For the first time since I started this account, I wondered if the money was worth what it was costing me. Last night, I drafted a long text message to Ryan. I apologized for keeping secrets, for lying, for blaming him for my choices. I told him I understood why he was hurt and that I was willing to delete my OnlyFans account if that's what it would take to save our relationship. But I couldn't bring myself to send it because I wasn't sure I meant it. The truth is, I like the financial independence my OnlyFans account gives me. I like not having to worry about money, not having to budget carefully or skip things I want because I can't afford them. I like being able to contribute equally to our household expenses and even have money left over to save. If I delete my account and go back to just working at the boutique, I'll be right back where I started, stressed about money, barely making ends meet, dependent on Ryan for financial stability. That thought terrifies me almost as much as losing Ryan does. This morning, I got a text from my friend Ashley, who was at the party where Ryan found out about my OnlyFans account. "Hey girl, heard about you and Ryan. Just wanted to check in and see how you're doing." I called her immediately, desperate to talk to someone who might understand both sides of the situation. "Ashley," I said as soon as she picked up, "tell me honestly, what are people saying about what happened?" Ashley was quiet for a moment. "Madison, are you sure you want to know?" "Yes," I said, though I was already dreading her answer. "Most people think Ryan is handling this pretty well considering," she said carefully. "Everyone knows he really loves you, and they can see how much this is hurting him." "What about me?" I asked. "What are they saying about my side of things?" Ashley sighed. "People are divided. Some think you have the right to do whatever you want with your body, but others think you should have told Ryan from the beginning." "And what do you think?" I asked. "I think," Ashley said slowly, "that you made a choice that was right for you financially, but you handled it wrong relationship-wise. Ryan's a good guy, Madison. He deserved to know." "But do you think I was wrong to start the OnlyFans account in the first place?" I pressed. "I think," Ashley said, "that depends on what you value more, the money or the relationship." Her words hit me harder than I expected, because the truth is, I'm not sure I know the answer to that question. 2 weeks without Ryan has been the loneliest 2 weeks of my life. I miss his laugh, his terrible jokes, the way he makes coffee in the morning and leaves a cup for me before he goes to work. I miss talking to him about our days, planning weekend activities together, falling asleep next to someone who loves me. But I also miss the version of myself that existed before I started selling content online. The version that didn't spend hours every day thinking about lighting and angles and what kind of content would generate the most tips. The version that didn't have to compartmentalize her life into Real Madison and OnlyFans Madison. I used to be proud of who I was and what I stood for. Now I'm proud of my subscriber count and my monthly earnings, but I'm not sure those are the same thing. Tonight, I'm sitting in our apartment alone, looking at the vacation photos Ryan and I took last month. Photos that I paid for with money from my OnlyFans account, though he didn't know it at the time. In the pictures, we both look genuinely happy. Ryan has his arm around me, and I'm laughing at something he said. We look like a couple who's building something real together, something that could last. Looking at those photos now, I can't help but wonder if I've destroyed that future for the sake of financial independence that doesn't mean much if I have to experience it alone. I keep picking up my phone to call Ryan, then putting it down again. I've rehearsed what I would say 100 times, but I can never find words that feel adequate for the magnitude of what I've done to us. How do you apologize for 3 months of lies? How do you explain that you chose secrecy over trust, money over transparency, independence over partnership? How do you tell someone you love that you're sorry for making them feel like they weren't enough, when part of you still believes they weren't? The worst part is that I don't even know if an apology would matter at this point. Ryan hasn't contacted me in a week. For all I know, he's already decided that our relationship is over, that he can't trust me enough to try to work through this. Maybe he's right. Maybe some betrayals are too big to come back from, some secrets too destructive to forgive. I started an OnlyFans account because I wanted financial security and independence. I thought I was being smart and practical, taking control of my situation instead of just accepting financial stress. What I didn't consider was the cost of that independence. The cost of lying to someone I love, of compartmentalizing my life, of prioritizing money over trust. I thought I was protecting Ryan by keeping my account secret, but really I was protecting myself from having to defend a choice I wasn't sure he'd understand or support. I thought I was being strong and independent, but really I was being cowardly and selfish. And now I'm sitting alone in an apartment I can afford, with a bank account that's fuller than it's ever been, wondering if any of it was worth losing the person who made me happiest. Ryan once told me that the best part of his day was coming home to me, seeing my face when he walked through the door. He said I made everything worth it, the long hours, the difficult students, the low pay. All of it was worth it because he got to share his life with me. I used to feel the same way about him. I used to think that as long as we were together, we could handle anything life threw at us. Now I'm not sure I remember how to be happy without external validation, without the constant ping of notifications from subscribers, without the rush of seeing my earnings grow each week. I've become addicted to the financial power my OnlyFans account gives me, but I've lost the emotional security of being truly known and loved by someone who sees all of me and chooses me anyway. The money I've made feels hollow without Ryan here to share in the security it provides. The independence I fought for feels meaningless without someone I love to be independent with. 3 months ago, I thought I was solving our problems. Now I realize I was creating new ones that might be impossible to solve. I don't know if Ryan will ever come home. I don't know if he can forgive 3 months of lies, or if he can accept that I might choose to keep my OnlyFans account even knowing how much it hurts him. I don't even know if I deserve his forgiveness, or if I'm capable of being the partner he deserves. All I know is that I'm more successful financially than I've ever been, and more miserable emotionally than I thought possible. I got everything I thought I wanted, and I lost everything that actually mattered.